Now let me ask you a question.
Okay.
So would you object, and I think today you also said that you work on behalf of consumers. You'd agree with that, right?
That's how I view
Would
my job, yes.
Would you object to getting permission from consumers, those people who you work for, before you collect or monitor their information?
So a couple things. First of all, as to whether there's any inconsistency in my testimony today with that letter, I don't believe there is. I don't want to have you mix apples and oranges, peaches and plums here. You've had a big focus with us on the credit card data, and we are very careful about avoiding any prospect of reverse engineering on that. The question earlier I got had to do with mortgage data where there's a zip code information, and what I have said is I think we're always concerned and want to be very careful about the prospect of reverse engineering, and it's something that is going to continue to evolve over time as more information is publicly available that can be matched against and so forth. So it's something we're going to be very mindful of and very careful about. As to your question of would we go to individual consumers and ask their permission before we seek, say, aggregate data about the credit card market, that's, I believe, intended to, and certainly would have the purpose of completely making it impossible for the agency to have any kind of data to know what's going on in these markets. Because to ask, many consumers for their permission before we could aggregate data about them would mean that I wouldn't know anything about the mortgage market when you want me to get the QM rule right. I wouldn't know anything about the credit card market when you want to report to Congress on that.
I've given you a chance to
how would that go?
I'm going to reclaim my time. I don't know that you've done any polling to see what the American consumer thinks about you monitoring and collecting their information. So I'm concerned that you may not be aware of where the American population is. And I bet if you ask them, they would love to have the opportunity to give you permission to access their information or deny you permission. Or in the least, I don't think you have an opt-out provision on your website. So if you say, listen, I'm one who doesn't want the group of people who claim to be working for me, I don't want to give them my information. You can't even opt out, which would be very easy for consumers, that concerns me. And there's been some comparison to the Bureau and the NSA, and I know that is a burr under your saddle and you don't like it. The NSA does not ask Americans permission to collect their phone records and emails and texts. And the CFPB does not ask permission to collect information on the American financial consumer. I would love if you would differentiate yourself from the NSA and actually ask the people that you work for permission before you access the information, or at least give America an opportunity to opt out. And I'll ask you another question here. As you go to your website, I pulled it up and looked at the disclosure about the information that you collect. It's horrible. I mean, that you have this much data on the American consumer that can be reverse engineered, and they don't have that information, and that disclosure clearly and crisply delineated on the website is of concern.
What are you talking about there? Are you talking about our consumer response function or what?
On the bottom of your website, when you talk about the data information on the website, and I can, if you want a copy, if you haven't looked at it, I can provide it to you. It's privacy policy and legal notices is what I'm referring to.
The time of the gentleman has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Michigan.